A child discovers a secret about Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, and what she does leaves everyone in shock. The aroma of cinnamon and baked apples hung in the frosty Christmas Eve air as snowflakes danced gently outside the fogged window. In the cozy living room of the Millers, little Lily, with bright eyes and curly brown hair, could barely contain her excitement. Her restless fingers played with the hem of her favorite red dress as she balanced on tiptoe, trying to reach the top of the Christmas tree. "Grandma Rose," Lily called, her voice overflowing with enthusiasm. "Do you think Santa will like the cookies we made?" Rose, 65 years old, with a warm smile that lit up her time-worn face, adjusted her glasses and looked lovingly at her granddaughter. "My dear, I'm sure they'll be the best cookies he's ever tasted." While Lily smiled, satisfied with the answer, Rose cast a worried glance towards the kitchen where her son, John, and daughter-in-law, Mary, were talking in low, tense tones. Something wasn't right, and she could feel it in the air as clearly as the festive aroma that permeated the house. John emerged from the kitchen, his tired face trying to hide something behind a forced smile. "Hey, Princess," he called to Lily. "How about we put the star on top of the tree?" Lily's eyes widened with joy, but before she could answer, the phone rang, making John jump. He exchanged a quick, tense look with Mary before answering, his voice a low, worried murmur. "Who was it, Daddy?" Lily asked curiously when John hung up the phone with a heavy sigh. "Nobody important, sweetie," he replied, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Let's put that star up, huh?" As John lifted Lily into his arms so she could reach the top of the tree, Mary watched from the kitchen doorway, her eyes filled with a mixture of love and worry. Rose noticed how her daughter-in-law nervously twisted the dishcloth in her hands, a habit she only displayed when something deeply disturbed her. "Done!" Lily exclaimed triumphantly, the golden star now shining at the top of the tree. "Now Santa will find our house." John kissed his daughter's forehead, a tender gesture that contrasted with the evident tension in his shoulders. "Of course he will, my love. Santa always finds his way." At that moment, the doorbell rang, making everyone turn in surprise. They weren't expecting visitors that night. "I'll get it," Mary offered quickly, giving John a meaningful look before heading to the door. Lily, oblivious to the adult's intention, hopped with excitement. Could it be Santa arriving early? Rose chuckled softly, but her eyes were fixed on her son. "John," she began, her voice low, "is everything all right?" "You seem—" Before she could finish, Mary returned to the room, her face pale. "It was just the mailman," she said, holding an envelope with trembling hands. "A last-minute delivery." John took the envelope, his face a mask of forced calm. "It must be just another Christmas card," he said, but made no move to open it. Lily, sensing something was wrong but not understanding what, tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, can we leave milk and cookies for Santa now?" "Of course, Princess," John replied, tucking the mysterious envelope into his shirt pocket. "Let's get everything ready for the big night." As the family moved to the kitchen, Rose lingered for a moment, her experienced eyes catching the subtle signs of stress and secrecy. What were John and Mary hiding? And how would it affect the magical Christmas that Lily so eagerly awaited? Outside, the snow continued to fall silently, covering the small American town with a white blanket, as if trying to hide the secrets that threatened to surface on that Christmas Eve. In the Miller's house, as the festive preparations continued, an underlying tension grew, promising that this would be a Christmas Eve unlike any they had ever experienced. The living room clock struck midnight, and Lily, lying in bed with her eyes wide open, felt her heart race. It was officially Christmas, the moment she had been waiting for. Unable to contain her curiosity and excitement, the girl pushed aside the reindeer-printed blankets and placed her feet on the cold floor. With steps as light as feathers, Lily crept out of the room. The hallway was dark, illuminated only by the soft glow of the Christmas tree lights coming from downstairs. She could hear the occasional creak of the old wood and the constant ticking of the clock, sounds that seemed amplified in the silence of the night. Reaching the top of the stairs, Lily crouched down, her eyes shining with anticipation. She hoped to catch a glimpse of Santa Claus leaving presents under the tree. What she saw, however, made her little world crumble. Downstairs, partially hidden behind the Christmas tree, was her father, John. He was wearing red pants and black boots, and was in the process of putting a large red jacket over his white shirt. A wide black belt lay on the floor beside him, along with a fake beard and a red hat. Lily held her breath, her brain struggling to process what she was seeing. Her father was Santa Claus. But how? Why? A wave of confusion and sadness washed over her, making her eyes fill with tears. As she watched, paralyzed, John finished dressing, putting on the beard and hat. He turned to get something from a drawer in the nearby desk, and Lily saw his face clearly in the light of the tree lights. There was no doubt. It was her father pretending to be Santa Claus. Lily wanted to scream, wanted to run downstairs and demand explanations, but something kept her still. Perhaps it was the fear that if she moved, all the magic of Christmas would disappear forever. John, now fully dressed as Santa Claus, began taking presents out of a large sack and carefully placing them under the tree. Lily recognized some of the packages. They were the same ones she and her mother had wrapped days before, supposedly to be sent to distant cousins. When John opened the desk drawer again, something fell to the floor. Lily saw her father bend down to pick up what appeared to be an envelope. In the dim light, she could see her own childish handwriting on the envelope. It was one of her letters to Santa Claus. With a heavy heart, Lily watched her father open the envelope and read the letter, a sad smile playing on his lips. He then opened another drawer and Lily could see, to her horror, a stack of similar envelopes. All the letters she had written to Santa Claus over the years. The reality hit her like a punch in the stomach. Not only was Santa Claus not real, but her parents had lied to her all these years. Every letter, every wish, every secret she had confided in Santa Claus, it had all been read by her parents. Unable to bear it any longer, Lily stood up silently and returned to her room, closing the door carefully so as not to make a sound. She threw herself on the bed, burying her face in the pillow to muffle her sobs. Her magical Christmas world had shattered into 1,000 pieces. As she cried silently, Lily heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Quickly, she dried her tears and pretended to be asleep, only slightly opening her eyes when she heard whispered voices in the hallway. "John, are you sure we can't tell her?" It was her mother's voice, Mary, sounding worried. We can't, Mary. Lily is still too young to understand our difficulties." Her father's voice was tired, almost defeated. "But this secret, it's consuming us. What if she finds out?" "She won't find out. I promise I'll fix everything before things get worse. Lily will have a happy Christmas no matter what." Lily squeezed her eyes shut, her heart pounding. What was this secret her parents were hiding? What were these difficulties? Her young mind raced, trying to connect the dots between the revelation about Santa Claus and this mysterious conversation. Her parents' voices faded away, and Lily was left alone with her turbulent thoughts. Christmas, which had always been her favorite time of year, now seemed tainted by lies and secrets. She felt betrayed, confused, and above all, scared of what else she might discover. Turning in bed, Lily looked at the full moon shining through her window. The world outside seemed the same. The snow was still falling softly, the lights from the neighboring houses still twinkling cheerfully. But for Lily, nothing was the same anymore. A resolution was forming in her mind. If her parents could keep secrets, so could she. She wouldn't let them know she had discovered the truth about Santa Claus. And more than that, she would find out what secret her parents were hiding. With that decision, Lily finally fell into a restless sleep, dreaming of Santa Clauses who transformed into her father, and letters that flew away every time she tried to catch them. Christmas Day would dawn in a few hours, but for Lily the magic had already dissipated. In its place was a determination to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The adult world, with its secrets and lies, had invaded her childhood kingdom, and Lily knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The Christmas morning sun had barely begun to filter through the curtains of Lily's room when she opened her eyes. For a brief moment, the usual Christmas Day excitement washed over her, but soon the memories of the previous night came flooding back, bringing with them a wave of sadness and resentment. Lily sat up in bed, her mind swirling with conflicting thoughts. Downstairs, she could hear the familiar sounds of Christmas morning, the clinking of coffee cups, the rustling of wrapping paper, the soft laughter of her parents and grandmother. The thought of going downstairs and pretending everything was normal, of opening presents from the Santa Claus she now knew to be her father, made her stomach churn. It was then that an idea began to form in her head. If she couldn't face the Christmas charade, perhaps she could avoid it altogether. Lily lay back down, pulled the covers up to her chin, and waited. It wasn't long before she heard footsteps coming up the stairs. A soft knock on the door was followed by her mother's gentle voice. "Lily, honey, it's time to wake up." "Santa was here." Lily forced her voice to sound weak and hoarse. "Mommy, I don't feel well." The door opened and Mary entered, her face full of concern. She sat on the edge of the bed and placed her hand on Lily's forehead. "Oh, my love, you're a little warm. What are you feeling?" "My tummy hurts," Lily lied, feeling guilty but determined. "And my head too." "I don't think I can go downstairs to open the presents." Mary exchanged a worried look with John, who had appeared at the bedroom door. "Well, maybe it's best if you stay in bed for now. We can postpone opening the presents until you feel better." Lily nodded weakly, pretending to go back to sleep as soon as her parents left the room. As soon as she heard their footsteps receding, she sat up in bed, her mind now clear and focused. She had bought herself some time to think and plan. Taking her secret diary from under the mattress, Lily began to write furiously. Her illness gave her the perfect opportunity to execute the plan that was forming in her mind. If Christmas was based on lies, then she would reveal the truth, not just to herself but to all the children in the neighborhood. With determination, Lily began to compose a series of anonymous letters. "Dear friend," she wrote, "I have an important secret to share with you. Santa Claus isn't real. It's our parents who put the presents under the tree." She hesitated for a moment, her pen hovering over the paper. Was she really ready to destroy the magic of Christmas for her friends? But then, the image of her father dressed as Santa Claus, reading her secret letters, came back to her mind, and she continued writing with renewed determination. As she worked on her letters, Lily kept an ear out for any movement downstairs. Occasionally, she heard snippets of whispered conversations between her parents. Words like bills, job, and debts reached her ears, increasing her curiosity about the secret her parents were keeping. Determined to find out more, Lily devised a plan to investigate. She would ask subtle questions, closely observe her parents' reactions, and if necessary, search her father's office when she had the chance. The hours passed, and Lily alternated between writing her revealing letters and planning her investigation. She heard her grandmother Rose come upstairs several times, bringing soups and teas that Lily pretended to drink to maintain the illusion of her illness. In the afternoon, when she was sure no one would disturb her for a while, Lily quietly slipped out of her room. With the anonymous letters hidden under her nightgown, she crept to her parents' room. There, she found envelopes and stamps, which she borrowed to complete her mission. Back in her room, Lily carefully addressed each letter to her friends in the neighborhood. Her heart pounded as she sealed each envelope, knowing that her actions would forever change the lives of her friends, just as her own life had changed. As night fell, Lily heard her parents talking in low voices in the hallway. "We can't postpone this forever, John," Mary was saying, her voice tense. "We have to tell her sometime." "I know," John replied, sounding defeated. "But not today. Let her have one more day of innocence." Lily frowned. Her curiosity piqued even further. What could be so serious that her parents were afraid to tell her? Could it be something related to the difficulties she had overheard them mention? Determined to uncover the truth, Lily decided that the next morning, pretending to still be sick, she would search her father's office for clues. As for the letters, she would secretly deliver them to her friends' mailboxes during the night, when everyone was asleep. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, Lily felt a mixture of emotions. Guilt for her actions, anger over the Santa Claus lie, and fear of the secret her parents were hiding. But above all, there was a sense of determination. She would discover the truth, no matter the cost. The distant sound of Christmas bells reached her ears, and Lily closed her eyes tightly. This Christmas was far from happy, but she promised herself that in the end, the whole truth would come out. With that thought, She finally fell asleep, dreaming of flying letters and secrets hidden in locked drawers. The second day after Christmas dawned grey and cold, perfectly reflecting the mood inside the Miller's house. In the kitchen, John stirred his coffee absently, his tired eyes fixed on a distant point beyond the window. Mary, busy preparing a breakfast that no one seemed to have an appetite for, cast worried glances towards the stairs, hoping to hear some sign of movement from Lily's room. "She hasn't come down yet," Mary murmured, more to herself than to John. "Maybe we should call the doctor." John sighed heavily, running a hand over his unshaven face. "Let's give it a few more hours. Kids get sick all the time, especially in winter." At that moment, Rose entered the kitchen, her normally cheerful face marked with lines of worry. "Good morning, my dears. How's our little Lily?" "Still in bed," Mary replied, biting her lip. "Rose, do you think we might be overreacting? Maybe it's just a passing flu." Rose sat down at the table, her wise eyes studying the couple in front of her. "It could be, but there's something else going on here, isn't there? Lily is never this quiet, not even when she's sick. And you too," she hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "You seem to be carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." John and Mary exchanged quick glances, a silent conversation passing between them. John opened his mouth to speak, but was interrupted by the sound of light footsteps descending the stairs. Lily appeared at the kitchen door, still in her pajamas, her face pale and her eyes red, partly due to her night of secret planning, partly due to her convincing performance. "Good morning, sweetie." Mary hurried towards her daughter, placing a hand on her forehead. How are you feeling?" "A little better," Lily murmured, her eyes avoiding direct contact with any of them, "but still not very well." John stood up, a shadow of guilt passing over his face. "Want to open your presents now, Princess? Santa left some very special ones for you." Lily felt a lump form in her throat. "No, thank you, Daddy." "Maybe later." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken worries and kept secrets. Rose, sensing the tension, decided to take the initiative. "Lily, dear, how about you and I go for a walk in the garden? A little fresh air might do you good." Lily hesitated, but then nodded slowly. Perhaps she could use this time to try and find out more about what her parents were hiding. As Lily and Rose bundled up to go outside, John pulled Mary aside, speaking in a low voice. "We need to tell her, Mary. We can't go on like this." Mary shook her head, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Not now, John. She's already sick. How can we add this burden to her?" John ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of evident frustration. "And how much longer can we hide this? The bills keep coming. The bank won't wait forever." "Shh!" Mary silenced him, casting a worried glance in Lily's direction, who was putting on her boots near the door. "We'll figure it out. We just need more time." In the snow-covered garden, Rose walked slowly beside Lily, carefully observing her granddaughter. After a few minutes of silence, she finally spoke. "You know, Lily, when I was young, I used to think that keeping secrets was the best way to protect the people we love." Lily looked up, surprised. "Isn't it?" Rose smiled gently. "Over time, I learned that secrets have a way of growing inside us, becoming heavier each day. Sometimes, sharing what worries us can be the greatest act of love." Lily felt her defenses begin to crumble. Part of her wanted to tell her grandmother everything. About Santa Claus, about the letters, about her confusion and hurt. But then she remembered her parents' whispers, the words difficulties and secret, and her heart hardened again. "I'm fine, Grandma," she said, forcing a smile. "Just a little tired." Rose nodded, knowing she couldn't force her granddaughter's confidence. "Well, I'm here if you want to talk, about anything." Back in the house, John was on the phone, his voice tense as he spoke in low, urgent tones. Mary was sitting at the kitchen table, a pile of bills and papers spread out in front of her, her face a mask of worry. Lily, watching from the doorway, felt her heart clench. Whatever was going on, it was clearly serious. Her determination to uncover the truth grew even stronger. That evening, after a quiet and tense dinner, Lily heard her parents talking in the hallway again. "John, you have to try again. Call your old boss, Beg if you have to. You think I haven't tried? John's voice was laden with frustration and defeat. No one is hiring, Mary. And with the debts we have— Shh, Mary interrupted him. Lily can hear. Lily lay in bed, her mind racing. Job? Debts? The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together, but there was still a lot missing. She knew she needed to intensify her investigation. As the house finally fell silent for the night, Lily made a promise to herself. Tomorrow, she would find out the truth, no matter the cost. With that thought, she drifted off to sleep, her dreams filled with whispered secrets and mysterious letters flying through the night. The morning of the third day after Christmas dawned with a deceptive stillness in the small American town. As families prepared for another day of winter vacation, a cold wind blew through the streets, carrying with it not only snowflakes but also the seeds of a revelation that was about to shake the community. In the Martin family home, 7-year-old Emily ran down the stairs waving an envelope in her hand. "Mommy, Daddy, I got a letter." Her parents exchanged puzzled looks. Who would send a letter to a child right after Christmas? Emily tore open the envelope excitedly, her eyes quickly scanning the words written in childish but careful handwriting. Suddenly, her cheerful face transformed into a mask of confusion and then sadness. "Mommy," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "Is it true that Santa Claus doesn't exist?" Across the street at the Johnsons' residence, a similar scene was unfolding. Little Tommy, Lily's friend, read his own letter with wide eyes, his lower lip trembling. But, he stammered, looking at his parents with a mixture of accusation and despair. "You told me Santa Claus was real." Within hours, the phone at the Miller's house began to ring incessantly. Mary, still worried about Lily's illness and the family's financial concerns, answered with apprehension. "Hello? Oh, hi, Mrs. Martin. What? A letter about Santa Claus?" Mary's face paled as she listened. "But no, I have no idea who could have sent that. Yes, I understand your concern. I'll look into it and call you back." No sooner had Mary hung up than the phone rang again, and again, and again. Worried and irritated parents from all over the neighborhood were calling, all reporting the same thing. Anonymous letters revealing the truth about Santa Claus. Upstairs, Lily listened to the commotion with a mixture of guilt and determination. She hadn't expected her actions to cause such an uproar. Part of her wanted to go downstairs and confess, but another part, the part that was still hurt and confused, kept her silent. John arrived home mid-afternoon, his face tense and worried. Lily watched him from her bedroom window, noticing how he seemed to look nervously over his shoulder before entering. Where had he been? Why did he seem so furtive? "Mary," John called as soon as he entered, his voice low but urgent. "We need to talk." Lily crept to the top of the stairs, straining to hear her parents and conversation. "What's going on?" John asked. "Why are there so many messages on my phone about Santa Claus?" Mary sighed heavily. "Someone sent letters to the neighborhood kids, John, letters revealing that Santa Claus isn't real." John cursed under his breath. "Who would do such a thing, and why?" "I don't know," Mary replied, "but that's the least of our problems right now. Where have you been? Did you manage to talk to Mr. Davis about the loan?" Lily's heart skipped a beat. Loan her father was looking for money. "It didn't work out," John said, his voice heavy with defeat. "He said that without a steady job, he can't help us." "I don't know what to do anymore, Mary. The bills keep piling up, and if we can't pay the mortgage—" "Shh," Mary interrupted him. "So I will think of something. We always do." Lily retreated silently, her mind reeling. Her parents were in serious financial trouble, and she hadn't even known. Suddenly, her Santa Claus revenge seemed small and foolish in comparison. As the afternoon wore on, the chaos in the neighborhood only intensified. Groups of parents gathered on the sidewalks, heatedly discussing who could be behind the letters. Some children were crying openly, while others seemed to be in a state of shock. Sarah Johnson, their next-door neighbor, knocked on the Miller's door late in the afternoon. "Mary," she said, her face serious, "I think we need to have a neighborhood meeting to discuss this. The kids are devastated, and the parents are furious." Mary nodded wearily. "You're right. We can use our living room tomorrow night. I'll let everyone know." Meanwhile, Lily watched everything from her room, a knot of guilt and regret growing in her stomach. She hadn't imagined her actions would have such far-reaching consequences. Now, not only did she have to deal with the truth about Santa Claus and her parents' secret, but also with the chaos she had created in the neighborhood. That night, Lily heard her father leaving the house again. Curious and worried, she ventured downstairs, finding her mother sitting alone in the living room, surrounded by piles of bills and papers. "Mommy?" Lily called softly. "Where did Daddy go?" Claire looked up, surprised to see Lily out of bed. "Oh, honey, your father just went to take care of some things. Don't worry." But Lily could see the worry in her mother's eyes, could feel the tension in the air. Something was very wrong, and she knew her actions had only added more stress to the situation. That night, lying in bed, Lily made a decision. She needed to fix things, somehow. She had to undo the damage she had caused and help her parents with their problems. But how? With these heavy thoughts on her mind, Lily fell asleep, unaware that the next day would bring even more revelations and challenges. The domino effect she had started was far from over, and the consequences of her actions were only beginning to unfold. The following morning dawned with a cold mist hanging over the streets of the small American town. In the miller's house, the silence was heavy, broken only by the occasional clinking of cups in the kitchen, where Mary prepared breakfast with mechanical movements, her tired eyes revealing a sleepless night. Across the street, Sarah Johnson watched the miller's house from her living room window. A recent arrival from Chicago, Sarah had moved to the small town only 3 months earlier, seeking a fresh start after years of intense work as a child counselor. Her trained eye hadn't missed the subtle shifts in the miller's family dynamic over the past few days. Making a decision, Sarah crossed the street and knocked softly on the miller's door. Mary answered, a shadow of surprise passing over her exhausted face. "Sarah, good morning. Is something wrong?" Sarah smiled gently. "Actually, Mary, I'd like to talk to Lily, if possible. As a former child counselor, I think I might be able to help with everything that's been going on." Mary hesitated for a moment, then nodded, a flicker of relief crossing her face. "Of course, come in. Lily's in her room. Maybe you can get her to talk. She's been so distant." Sarah climbed the stairs quietly, stopping in front of the door decorated with stars and moons. She knocked softly. "Lily, it's me, Mrs. Johnson. Can I come in?" There was a moment of silence. Then a small voice replied, "Come in." Sarah found Lily sitting on her bed, a notebook open in her lap. The girl looked up, a mixture of guilt and defiance in her gaze. "Hi, Lily," Sarah said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "How are you feeling?" Lily shrugged, her fingers playing nervously with the pages of the notebook. "I'm fine." Sarah observed the girl for a moment, then spoke softly. "You know, Lily, sometimes when we're hurt or confused, we do things that can unintentionally hurt other people. Has that ever happened to you?" Lily's eyes widened slightly and she looked down. I don't know what you're talking about." Sarah smiled understandingly. "Lily, I'm here to help, not to judge. I know about the letters that were sent to the neighborhood children, and I think you might know something about that." There was a long moment of silence. Then, to Sarah's surprise, Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she whispered. I was so angry and confused." Sarah placed a comforting hand on Lily's shoulder. "Why were you angry and confused, honey?" And then, like a dam finally breaking, Lily began to talk. She told about Christmas Eve, about seeing her father dressed as Santa Claus, about finding the old letters. She spoke about the feeling of betrayal, the anger at having been deceived for so long. "I thought that if everyone knew the truth, I wouldn't feel so alone," Lily concluded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "But now everyone is sad and angry, and I just feel worse." Sarah listened attentively, her heart aching for the girl's evident pain. "Lily, what you did came from a place of hurt. That's understandable. But do you understand now why it hurt other people?" Lily nodded sadly. "I ruined Christmas for everyone." "No, honey," Sarah said gently. You didn't ruin Christmas. Christmas isn't about Santa Claus. It's about love, family, and kindness. And it's never too late to make things right. Lily looked at Sarah, a flicker of hope in her eyes. You think I can fix this? I'm sure you can, Sarah smiled. But first, we need to tell your parents the truth. They need to understand why you did what you did. Lily's face clouded with worry. Sorry, but there's something else. Sarah tilted her head, encouraging Lily to continue. My parents, they're hiding something. Daddy goes out at strange hours. They're always whispering about money and problems. I think we're in serious trouble, Mrs. Johnson. Sarah felt a pang of concern. She had noticed the tension in the Miller family, but she hadn't realized the situation was so serious. Lily, you did the right thing by telling me this. Sometimes adults try to protect children by hiding problems, but that's not always the best approach. We'll work together to help your family, okay? Lily nodded, a small smile appearing on her face for the first time in days. Okay. Sarah stood up, extending her hand to Lily. Come on, it's time to talk to your parents. I'll be right there with you the whole time. Together, they went downstairs. In the living room, they found Mary and John, who had just arrived, looking tired and dejected. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, Sarah began. Lily has something important to tell you. As Lily, her voice trembling but determined, recounted the letters and her actions, Sarah watched Mary and John's reactions. Shock, disappointment, but also understanding and love crossed their faces. When Lily finished, there was a moment of tense silence. Then, to everyone's surprise, John knelt before his daughter, tears in his eyes. Lily, my darling, we're the ones who should apologize. We shouldn't have kept secrets from you. You're right, we're facing problems, and we should have been honest from the beginning. Mary joined them, wrapping Lily in a hug. We'll fix this together as a family. Sarah watched the scene with a mixture of relief and determination. The Miller family had a long road ahead, but the first step, honesty, had already been taken. Now it was time to help not only the Millers, but the entire community to heal and rediscover the true meaning of Christmas. As the family talked, planning how to address the community and resolve their financial problems, Sarah knew her mission was far from over. The small American town had been shaken, but with understanding, forgiveness, and teamwork, they could turn this crisis into an opportunity for growth and unity. The grey January morning found Lily Miller sitting at her bedroom window, her eyes fixed on the street below. Her father, John, had left early once again, muttering something about important business to Mary. Lily, however, wasn't convinced. Despite the frank conversation they'd had with Mrs. Johnson's help, she felt there were still more secrets to be revealed. With a determination that would surprise even her parents, Lily quickly dressed, pulled a beanie over her head, and crept down the stairs. "Mom," she called out, "can I go play at Emily's house?" Mary appeared at the kitchen door, dark circles under her tired eyes. "Sure, honey. Just don't be too long, okay?" Lily nodded, feeling a pang of guilt for lying, but determined to uncover the truth. As soon as she left the house, she spotted her father turning the corner and followed him, keeping a safe distance. The streets of the small town were quiet on that winter morning. Lily hid behind trees and parked cars, her heart pounding every time John looked back. She saw him get on the bus and, on impulse, got on as well, hiding behind a large man. After a 20-minute ride, John got off in front of a large shopping mall on the outskirts of town. Lily, intrigued and a little scared to be so far from home alone, followed him inside. The mall was decorated with the last vestiges of the Christmas festivities. Lily watched her father head towards a door marked "Employees Only," near a large Christmas tree in the center of the mall. She waited, hidden behind a large potted plant, her heart beating so loudly she was sure everyone around could hear it. After what seemed like an eternity, the door opened again. Lily had to cover her mouth with her hands to stifle a gasp of surprise. Emerging from the employee room was Santa Claus, complete with a white beard, red suit, and a large sack of presents. But it wasn't just any Santa Claus, it was her father, John. Confused and stunned, Lily watched as her father, now dressed as Santa Claus, made his way to a large decorated chair near the Christmas tree. Children began to line up, eager to sit on Santa's lap and make their belated requests. Lily stood frozen, her mind racing to understand what she was seeing. Why was her father dressing up as Santa Claus in a shopping mall? Why was he keeping this a secret? Meanwhile, back in their small town, the situation was far from calming down. Lily's anonymous letters had sparked a wave of questions and discoveries among the neighborhood children. In the local park, a group of children gathered, arguing in excited voices. "My older brother told me he saw our parents putting the presents under the tree," exclaimed Tommy, his eyes wide with indignation. Emily, clutching her teddy bear tightly, shook her head in denial. "It can't be true. Santa Claus is real. He has to be." "But what about the letters?" asked another boy, Peter. "Someone must know the truth to have written those." The children continued debating, their voices mingling in a cacophony of confusion and disappointment. Some parents, watching from afar, exchanged worried glances, unsure of how to handle the situation. Back at the mall, Lily continued to watch her father interact with the children as Santa Claus. She noticed how kind and patient he was, listening attentively to each request and offering words of encouragement. For a moment, Lily almost forgot it was her father there, so convincing was his performance. After a few hours, John finally took a break and headed back to the employee room. Lily, exhausted and hungry, but still determined, waited. When her father emerged again, dressed in his normal clothes, she saw him approach a man in a suit who appeared to be the mall manager. Hiding behind a column, Lily managed to catch snippets of their conversation. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Davis. Excellent performance, Mr. Miller. If we need you again. Any extra work would be greatly appreciated." Lily frowned, trying to piece together the puzzle. Was her father working as Santa Claus at the mall? But why? And why keep it a secret? Tired and confused, Lily decided it was time to go home. She took the bus back, her mind swirling with questions and theories. Arriving home, Lily found her mother on the phone, looking even more stressed than before. "Yes, I understand your concern, Mrs. Martin. No, we still don't know who sent the letters. Yes, we're doing everything we can to resolve the situation." Lily felt a wave of guilt wash over her. Her actions had caused so much turmoil, and now she had discovered her father was secretly working as Santa Claus. Everything seemed so complicated and confusing. That night, lying in bed, Lily heard her parents talking in low voices in the hallway. "John, we can't go on like this. The bills keep coming, and this temporary job as Santa Claus won't be enough." "I know, Mary. I'm doing my best. Maybe if I talk to Mr. Davis again, he might offer me something more permanent." Lily squeezed her eyes shut, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. She wanted so badly to fix things, to make everything go back to normal. But how could she undo the damage she had caused? And how could she help her parents with their financial problems? With these heavy thoughts on her mind, Lily drifted off to sleep, dreaming of Santa Clauses, mysterious letters, and a divided community. She didn't know it, but the events she had set in motion were about to reach a critical point, and the revelations that followed would change not only her family, but the entire community forever. The community hall of the small American town had never seemed so full and tense. Families from all over the neighborhood crowded into the chairs arranged in a circle, the murmur of worried conversations filling the air. In the center of the circle, Sarah Johnson prepared to begin the meeting, her face a mask of professional calm that hid her own apprehension. The Millers entered last, John and Mary flanking Lily, who seemed to want to disappear between her parents. Curious and some accusing glances turned towards them, making Lily shrink even further. Sarah cleared her throat, getting everyone's attention. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to this emergency meeting. As you know, over the past few days, our community has been facing, well, a delicate situation involving our children and the tradition of Christmas." Murmurs of agreement and a few exasperated sighs echoed through the room. "First of all," Sarah continued, "I'd like to ask everyone to keep an open mind and a compassionate heart. We're here to understand, not to judge." She paused, her eyes meeting Lily's. With a slight nod, Sarah encouraged the girl. Lily took a deep breath, stepped forward, and with a trembling but determined voice began, I have something to confess." The silence that followed was deafening. All eyes turned to Lily's small figure, who seemed to struggle to find the right words. "I was the one who wrote the letters," she finally said, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "I was the one who told the other kids the truth about Santa Claus." Gasps of surprise and exclamations of shock echoed through the hall. Lily continued, her words now pouring out in a torrent now that the floodgates had been opened. "On Christmas Eve, I saw my dad dressing up as Santa Claus. I found all my old letters put away. I realized it was all a lie, and I was so hurt, so angry." Tears began to stream down Lily's face. "I thought if everyone knew the truth, I wouldn't feel so alone. I didn't realize how much harm it would cause. I'm so sorry, so very sorry." The silence that followed was heavy, laden with conflicting emotions. Then, to everyone's surprise, Tommy, the boy who had been one of the most vocal about his disappointment, stood up. I was really sad too when I found out," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "But now, seeing how sad Lily is, I realize that maybe Christmas isn't just about Santa Claus." Emily, sitting next to her mother, also spoke up. "My mom told me that the spirit of Christmas is in us, not in a man in a red suit. I think I understand that now." Gradually, other children and parents began to share their feelings and thoughts. The atmosphere in the hall began to shift, the initial anger giving way to collective understanding and compassion. Sarah, seeing the change, decided to seize the moment. See, what Lily did came from a place of pain and confusion. But look what we've been able to create from this, a moment of honesty and true connection in our community. John, who had remained silent until then, stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. "As a father," he began, his voice hoarse with emotion, "I feel like I failed. Not only in keeping the magic of Christmas alive for my daughter, but in being honest when it mattered most." He paused, looking around the room, his eyes meeting the familiar faces of his neighbors and friends. For a moment, it seemed like he was going to reveal something else, something important. The tension in the room was palpable. John hesitated, his gaze meeting Mary's, who nodded slightly. "I would like to apologize to all of you, and especially to the children. We maintained this illusion with the best of intentions, but perhaps it's time to rethink how we celebrate Christmas and what truly matters." Sarah, sensing John's hesitation, decided to intervene. "Thank you, Mr. Miller. I think we all have a lot to reflect on about our traditions and how we pass them on to our children." She turned to the group. "What happened here can't be undone, but we can choose how to move forward. How about we use this as an opportunity to create new traditions based on honesty and the true spirit of Christmas?" The families began to discuss amongst themselves, the mood in the room shifting from tension to cautious optimism. Ideas began to emerge, a community celebration where the children could be Santa's helpers, distributing gifts to the less fortunate, a play telling the true story of Christmas, a project to collaboratively decorate the town. As the meeting continued, Lily found herself surrounded by other children. To her surprise, instead of accusations, she found curiosity and even a bit of admiration. "You were really brave to tell the truth," said Emily, giving Lily a hug. "Yeah, and now we can be part of the secret," added Tommy, with a conspiratorial smile. "We can help keep the magic alive for the younger kids." Lily felt a huge weight lift from her shoulders. She looked at Sarah, who gave her an encouraging smile, and then at her parents. John and Mary were talking to other parents, their faces showing relief, but still with a shadow of worry that Lily didn't fail to notice. When the meeting finally came to an end, there was a general feeling of renewal and shared purpose. The families left the community hall not as isolated individuals, but as a united community, ready to face the challenges together and rediscover the true meaning of Christmas. On the way home, Lily walked hand in hand with her parents, feeling lighter than she had in days. However, she couldn't help but notice the worried expressions John and Mary exchanged when they thought she wasn't looking. "Daddy, Mommy," she said softly, "I know there's still something you're not telling me. Something about money and work." John and Mary exchanged surprised looks. "Lily, honey," Mary began, "we didn't want to worry you." But I want to help, Lily insisted. We're a family, aren't we? Families face things together. John knelt down to meet Lily's eyes, his expression a mixture of pride and concern. You're right, Princess. I think it's time we were completely honest with each other. As they walked home under the starry winter sky, John and Mary began to explain their financial situation to Lily. The girl listened attentively, her young heart filled with love and determination. She didn't know how, but she was determined to help her family overcome this challenge. What none of them knew was that the revelations of that night had planted the seeds for changes far greater than they could imagine. The small American town was about to rediscover not only the true spirit of Christmas, but also the power of community and honesty. John Miller sat on the edge of his bed, the first light of dawn barely penetrating the curtains, his tired eyes fixed on a framed photograph on the nightstand, a picture from happier times, when his smile was genuine and Mary's eyes sparkled without worry. Lily, still a baby in her mother's arms, smiled innocently at the camera. A heavy sigh escaped his lips as his mind wandered back to the events that had led him to this moment of anguish. Flashback 6 months ago. I'm sorry, John, but with the company restructuring, we're going to have to let you go. His boss's words echoed in his ears, cold and impersonal. John felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. But I've worked here for 15 years. Surely there must be something. The decision has already been made. You'll receive a severance package, of course. Good luck, John. That night, John arrived home later than usual, having wandered the streets of the town, trying to find the courage to face his family. When he finally entered, he found Mary in the kitchen preparing dinner. John, I was getting worried. What happened? Mary asked, immediately noticing her husband's dejected expression. He hesitated, the words catching in his throat. I lost my job, Mary. The silence that followed was deafening, present. John was pulled from his memories by the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Mary appeared at the door, her face a mixture of concern and love. John, she said softly, sitting beside him, we can't go on like this. Lily has noticed something is wrong. We need to be honest with her. With everyone. John closed his eyes, feeling the weight of months of secrets and stress. I know, Mary. I didn't want to disappoint you. I should be able to take care of you. Mary took her husband's hand, squeezing it gently. We're a family, John. We face things together. Remember. Flashback. 4 months ago, John left another failed job interview, the discouragement evident in his slumped shoulders. The weeks dragged on, and each no he received seemed to erode his self-esteem a little more. Passing by a shopping mall, he saw an advertisement, Santa Claus wanted for the holiday season. For a moment, John hesitated. Was this what his life had become? But then he thought of Lily, of Mary, of the bills piling up at home. Swallowing his pride, he went in to apply in present. Daddy? Lily's voice pulled John from his reverie. She was standing at the bedroom door, still in her pajamas, her large eyes filled with concern. Can I talk to you? John exchanged a look with Mary before nodding for Lily to approach. Of course, Princess. What is it? Lily hesitated, playing with the hem of her nightgown. Then, summoning her courage, she said, I saw you at the mall, Daddy, dressed as Santa Claus. The shock on John and Mary's faces was palpable. John felt as if the air had been sucked out of his lungs. Lily, you followed me. Lily nodded, tears forming in her eyes. I knew something was wrong. You were always whispering, looking worried. I just wanted to help. John pulled his daughter into a tight hug, feeling the tears burn in his own eyes. Oh, Lily, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for hiding this from you. Mary joined the hug, and for a few moments, the Miller family remained like that, united in their moment of vulnerability. When they finally separated, John knew it was time for the truth. Not just for Lily, but for himself. Lily, Mary, he began, his voice trembling but determined, I think it's time to tell everything, not just to you, but to the whole community. Mary squeezed his hand in support, while Lily looked at her father with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. John took a deep breath and began to tell his story. He spoke about losing his job, about the weeks of fruitless job searching, about the desperation that led him to accept the role of Santa Claus at the mall. He confessed his fears, his shame, and how the weight of the secret was consuming him. "I thought I was protecting you," he concluded, his voice thick with emotion. "But now I see I was only pushing us apart. Lily, you were braver than me, being honest about Santa Claus. I think it's time I followed your example." Lily, with tears in her eyes, hugged her father again. "Daddy, you don't have to be ashamed. You did it for us. That makes you the best dad in the world." Mary, wiping away her own tears, added, "John, you're not alone in this. We'll face this together, as a family." At that moment, John felt a huge weight lift from his shoulders. The fear and shame that had consumed him for months began to dissipate, replaced by a renewed sense of determination. "I'm going to talk to Sarah," he said, referring to their American neighbor who had organized the community meeting. "Maybe we can have another meeting. Now it's time to be completely honest with everyone." Lily, surprising her parents with her maturity, suggested, "What if we turn this into something positive? Maybe the community can come together not just for Christmas, but to help each other in difficult times." John and Mary looked at their daughter with pride and admiration. "That's a wonderful idea, Lily," Mary said, kissing the top of the girl's head. As the Miller family prepared to face the day and the challenges ahead, John felt, for the first time in months, a glimmer of hope. He didn't know how the community would react to his revelation, but he knew that with his family by his side, he could face anything. The sun now shone fully through the window, symbolizing a new beginning. John looked again at the photograph on the nightstand and, for the first time in a long time, smiled genuinely. No matter what the future held, they would face it together, as a family with honesty and love. The community hall was once again packed, the air thick with anticipation and apprehension. Sarah Johnson stood in the center, her serene face masking her own anxiety about what was about to happen. Beside her, John Miller looked pale but determined, his eyes briefly meeting those of Mary and Lily, who offered him encouraging smiles from the front row. "Good evening, everyone," Sarah began, her calm voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. "Saika, thank you for coming to this emergency meeting. As you know, our community has gone through many revelations and changes in recent weeks. Today, we have another important truth to share." She paused, turning to John. "Mr. Miller, is there something you'd like to say to the community?" John stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked around the room, seeing familiar faces, neighbors, friends, people with whom he had shared so many moments over the years. Taking a deep breath, he began, "My friends, my neighbors. I've been keeping a secret that has been eating away at me for months. A secret that has affected not only my family, but indirectly our entire community." The silence in the room was palpable, all eyes fixed on John. "6 months ago, I lost my job," he continued, his voice trembling slightly. "The company I worked for 15 years went through a restructuring, and I was let go." Murmurs of surprise and sympathy rippled through the room. John continued, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. "I felt ashamed, a failure as a provider for my family. I spent weeks looking for a new job, but without success. The bills began to pile up, and the despair grew with each passing day." He paused, looking at Lily, who encouraged him with a small nod. "It was then that, a few weeks ago, I found an opportunity. It wasn't the job I expected, but it was something that could help my family survive. I became the Santa Claus at the shopping mall in the neighboring town." Shock was visible on the faces around the room. Some people gasped, others exchanged surprised glances. I know this may seem trivial to some, but for me, it was all I had. I spent entire days listening to children's Christmas wishes, knowing that I might not be able to fulfill my own daughter's wishes. I smiled and pretended to be cheerful, while inside I was falling apart. John felt tears welling up in his eyes, but he continued. "The worst part was keeping it a secret, from you, my friends, and even from my own family. I thought I was protecting them, but in reality I was only isolating us further." He turned to Lily, who was now also crying silently. "Lily, my darling, when you discovered the truth about Santa Claus, I felt like a failure twice over. Not only as a provider, but also as a father, unable to keep the magic of Christmas alive for you. Lily rose from her seat and ran to hug her father. John wrapped her in his arms, tears now streaming freely down his face. But you, my brave daughter, taught me an important lesson. You showed that honesty, even when painful, is the path to true connection and understanding. Turning back to the community, John continued, I'm here today not only to confess my secret, but to apologize. I apologize for not trusting you, my friends and neighbors, for thinking that facing this alone was the answer. Now I see that true strength comes from community, from honesty and from mutual support. The silence that followed was brief, soon broken by Mrs. Davis, the owner of the local bakery. Oh, John, she said, her voice choked with emotion. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Dressing up as Santa Claus to support your family. That's the true spirit of Christmas. Murmurs of agreement echoed through the room. Mr. Smith, the local school teacher, stood up. John, you've shown us what sacrifice and love truly mean. We couldn't be prouder to have you as part of our community. One by one, people stood up, offering words of support, sharing their own struggles, and expressing admiration for John's courage. Sarah, seeing the moment, intervened. See, this is what it means to be a community. It's not just about sharing the good times, but about supporting each other through the tough times. John has given us a precious gift today, the gift of truth and vulnerability. Mary, who had remained silent until then, stood up to join her husband and daughter. I'd like to thank all of you, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Oh, your support means more than you can imagine. And John, she turned to her husband, you are the strongest and most loving man I know. I'm so proud of you. Lily, still hugging her father, looked around the room at the sympathetic and understanding faces. At that moment, she understood something profound about Christmas, something that went beyond presents and Santa Claus. Daddy, she said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear, I think I understand the true meaning of Christmas now. It's not about presents or a man in a red suit. It's about love, sacrifice, and being there for each other. You're my real Santa Claus. Lily's words touched the hearts of everyone in the room. Many wiped away tears, moved by the young girl's wisdom. Sarah, sensing the opportune moment, proposed, what if we used this experience as a starting point? We could create a community fund to help families in need, share skills, offer temporary jobs, turn our town into a true example of Christmas spirit all year round. The idea was met with enthusiasm. People quickly began offering suggestions and volunteering to help. John, still embracing his family, looked around the room with wonder and gratitude. The weight he had carried for months seemed to have dissipated, replaced by a sense of belonging and hope. As the meeting continued, with plans being made and support being offered, Lily tugged on her father's sleeve. Daddy, she whispered, I think we ended up saving Christmas, didn't we? John smiled, kissing the top of his daughter's head. No, my dear, I think Christmas saved us. And so, on that cold winter night, in a small community hall in an American town, the true spirit of Christmas shone brighter than any decorated tree or wrapped present. It was the spirit of community, honesty, and unconditional love, a spirit that everyone there knew would continue to shine far beyond the holiday season. The days following John's revelation were a whirlwind of activity in the small American town. What began as a shock quickly transformed into a wave of solidarity and support that swept through the community. The Millers' story had touched everyone's hearts, awakening a collective desire to help and rediscover the true meaning of Christmas. Lily, inspired by her father's courage and the community's support, gathered her friends, Emily and Emma, to plan something special. What if we throw a big Christmas party for the whole town? She proposed, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. We can show everyone what the Christmas spirit really means. The idea quickly gained momentum. The children formed a planning committee, with Lily at the helm. They met every afternoon at the local library, making lists, designing decorations, and discussing activities. Meanwhile, the town's adults weren't lagging behind. A support fund was created to help the Millers and other families who might be experiencing similar difficulties. Mrs. Davis, the baker, offered John a temporary job at her shop. "Your hands might be good for making bread as well as distributing gifts," she said with a warm smile. Mr. Smith, the teacher, organized vocational retraining classes on weekday evenings, with John as one of the first students. "It's never too late to learn new skills," he encouraged. Mary, touched by the support, volunteered to coordinate a community food bank. "It's the least I can do to give back for all this kindness," she said, tears in her eyes. As the day of the big party approached, the entire town seemed to vibrate with renewed energy. The streets were decorated with lights and handmade garlands by the children. The aroma of freshly baked bread and sweets filled the air as volunteers prepared food for hundreds of people. On the eve of the event, Lily found her father sitting alone in the backyard, gazing thoughtfully at the stars. "Daddy," she called softly, sitting beside him. "Is everything okay?" John smiled, pulling his daughter close. "Yes, sweetie. I'm just thinking about how quickly things have changed. A few weeks ago, I felt completely alone, carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. And now we have the whole town by our side," Lily finished excitedly. John nodded, his eyes shining with emotion. "Exactly. You know, Lily, you taught me a very important lesson. Your honesty, even though it initially caused some problems, brought us here. You showed me that the truth, however difficult, is always the best path." Lily hugged her father tightly. "I love you, Daddy. You'll always be my hero, with or without a Santa suit." The next morning, the town square was unrecognizable. A huge pine tree, decorated with ornaments made by the children, dominated the center. Colorful stalls sold local food and crafts. A makeshift stage was set up for musical and theatrical performances. The party started at noon, with the ringing of the bells of the local church. Families from all over town and even from neighboring towns began to arrive, drawn by the news of the special event. Lily and her friends ran around, making sure everything was perfect. They had prepared a play telling the story of Christmas, but with a special twist. The Santa Claus in the play was an ordinary father, working hard to bring joy to his family and community. When it was time for the performance, Lily took the stage, her voice slightly trembling but full of conviction. "Welcome to our celebration of the true spirit of Christmas. This year, we learned that Christmas is not about expensive gifts or elaborate costumes. It's about love, community, and being there for each other in difficult times." The audience applauded enthusiastically, many with tears in their eyes, remembering the journey that had brought them there. The play was a success, drawing laughter and tears from the audience. When it ended, Sarah Johnson took the stage, asking for everyone's attention. "Today we want to honor someone very special," she announced. "Someone who reminded us what sacrifice and unconditional love mean. John Miller, could you come up here, please?" John, surprised, was gently nudged by Mary towards the stage. As he climbed up, he was greeted with a standing ovation. "John," Sarah continued, "your courage in facing adversity, your dedication to your family, and your honesty have inspired us all. On behalf of the entire community, we want to present you with this." She handed John an envelope. With trembling hands, he opened it, his eyes widening as he read the contents. This is a job offer," he stammered, looking at the crowd in disbelief. Mr. Davis, the owner of the shopping mall where John had worked as Santa Claus, stepped forward. "John, your dedication as our Santa showed us the kind of person you are. We'd like to offer you a permanent position on our management team. Someone with your heart and ethics is exactly what we need." The square erupted in applause and cheers. John, too overcome with emotion to speak, just nodded, tears streaming freely down his face. Lily ran to hug her father, followed by Mary. The Miller family stood there, center stage, surrounded by the love and support of the entire community. As night fell, lanterns were lit around the square, creating a magical atmosphere. Families gathered to sing carols, share stories, and simply enjoy each other's company. Mary, watching the scene, whispered to John, "I think this is the most special Christmas we've ever had." John nodded, pulling her close. "And to think it started with a painful revelation. But look at us now, more united than ever. Lily, who was nearby, joined the hug. See, Daddy, in the end we saved Christmas. John laughed, ruffling his daughter's hair affectionately. No, sweetie, Christmas saved us. It reminded us of what truly matters. Epilogue. 1 year later. Snow fell softly on the small American town, covering it in a white, sparkling blanket. At the miller's house, Christmas preparations were in full swing. John, dressed in a festive sweater, hung lights outside the house, whistling cheerfully. His new job at the mall had been a success, bringing financial stability and renewed confidence to the family. Inside, Mary and Lily were in the kitchen, baking cookies for the community party that had become a new tradition in town. "Mum," Lily said, sprinkling sugar on a star-shaped cookie, "do you think people still remember what happened last year?" Mary smiled, kissing the top of her daughter's head. "I'm sure they do, honey. But look at us now. Sometimes you have to go through difficult times to discover your true strength." The sound of the doorbell interrupted their conversation. Lily ran to answer it, finding Emily, Emma, and other neighborhood children. "Come on, Lily," Emily called excitedly. "We have to finish the preparations for the celebration in the square." With a quick kiss to her mother, Lily rushed out with her friends, their laughter echoing through the snowy street. Later that night, the Miller family walked hand in hand towards the town square. The scene that greeted them was pure Christmas magic: twinkling lights, soft music, the aroma of hot chocolate and cinnamon in the air. In the center of the square, a large pine tree stood tall, decorated not only with traditional ornaments, but with small cards where people had written their thanks and wishes for the community. John was quickly surrounded by neighbors and friends, all eager to share their stories of the past year. Mary joined a group of women who were coordinating the community food bank, now a permanent institution in the town. Lily, along with the other children, ran around, helping where they could and spreading joy with their bright smiles. In a quiet moment, the Miller family gathered near the tree, watching the celebration around them. Who would have thought, John reflected, that a moment of crisis could lead to something so beautiful? Mary squeezed his hand. "It's because we learned the true meaning of Christmas. It's not about presents or costumes. It's about community, honesty and love." Lily, her eyes shining with the light of the stars and lanterns, added, "And about family. Our family and our big town family." As they hugged, watching the joy and love that surrounded them, the Millers knew they had discovered the true spirit of Christmas. A spirit that lived not just on one day of the year, but in every act of kindness, every moment of honesty, and every strengthened bond in their community. And so, under the starry winter sky, the small American town continued its celebration, not just of Christmas, but of the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of love and community.